What if the most heart-wrenching moment in Meghan Markle's Oprah interview was nothing more than a carefully scripted act? In a stunning new revelation, Meghan's own mother, DORIA Ragland, has broken her silence, claiming that the tearful scene where Meghan confessed her darkest struggles was rehearsed multiple times before the cameras rolled. DORIA admits she was there, helping Meghan practice every line, and now regrets not speaking up sooner. This bombshell not only challenges the authenticity of Meghan's story, but could rewrite the entire narrative surrounding one of the most watched interviews in recent history. Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind the scenes. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. There are moments in television history that leave an indelible mark on the collective consciousness, scenes so powerful, so raw, that they become etched into the public memory. Meghan Markle's tearful confession during her Oprah Winfrey interview was one of those moments. It was an emotional climax that sparked global sympathy and shook the foundations of the British monarchy. With tears streaming down her face, Meghan described the depth of her anguish within the royal institution, revealing she just didn't want to be alive anymore. The world sat stunned, moved, and angry on her behalf. It was a moment that galvanized millions and became one of the most viral soundbites in modern royal history. But what if that moment wasn't spontaneous? What if that tearful admission, hailed as the unfiltered truth of a woman at her breaking point, had been scripted? What if the emotional weight of that scene had been rehearsed, word for word, tear for tear, in the quiet of a California living room long before the camera started rolling? This is the revelation shaking the foundations of the already turbulent House of Sussex. DORIA Ragland, Meghan Markle's mother, has reportedly broken her silence in a revelation that feels too surreal to be true. According to sources close to DORIA, and further backed by insiders familiar with events leading up to the Oprah interview, DORIA has admitted that the infamous emotional scene in the interview, widely regarded as the emotional centerpiece, was not only rehearsed, but actively scripted, practiced multiple times under her watch. And the most stunning admission of all, DORIA says she helped her daughter stage it. "I was there. I watched her rehearse it. I helped her, but I stayed quiet. I regret that now," DORIA allegedly confessed in a closed conversation that has since reached public ears. This confession doesn't just challenge Meghan Markle's credibility. It threatens to rewrite the narrative of one of the most controversial and sympathetic moments of modern royal discourse. It raises immediate, piercing questions. If that moment was manufactured, what else was? Was Oprah aware? Was Harry complicit? And perhaps most hauntingly, how deep does this deception go? The world first saw Meghan and Harry sit down in the garden of Oprah's sprawling Montecito estate in March 2021. Draped in black Armani and surrounded by manicured hedges and sunlight-dappled tranquility, Meghan unleashed a barrage of allegations. Institutional racism, indifference to her mental health, the erasure of her voice. It was powerful. It was theatrical. And it was perceived by many as a stunning act of courage. But theater, as we now know, may be more than a metaphor. DORIA Ragland's alleged confession shatters the illusion that the Oprah interview was a spontaneous, vulnerable act of emotional truth. Instead, it paints a picture of deliberate emotional engineering. According to the emerging narrative, Meghan rehearsed her tearful revelation in the days leading up to the interview, practicing her tone, timing, and even her facial expressions. DORIA, present for many of these rehearsals, says she was complicit, offering suggestions and encouragement as Meghan refined her performance. At the time, DORIA says she convinced herself it was for the greater good, to ensure her daughter's message landed, to make people listen, to force the world to confront what Meghan had allegedly endured. But now, she's haunted by that decision. She wanted the world to feel her pain, DORIA reportedly said. But the pain had to look perfect on camera. So we made it perfect. The implications are staggering. Meghan Markle has built her post-royal identity on a foundation of victimhood, resilience, and emotional honesty. Her media empire, philanthropic pursuits, and brand value are intrinsically tied to the narrative that she broke away from a cruel institution that tried to destroy her spirit. If the most emotional moment of that narrative was inauthentic, carefully rehearsed, and emotionally choreographed, then what remains of the story she's been telling the world? It's not just the revelation that's shocking, it's who it's coming from. DORIA Ragland has long been portrayed as Meghan's rock, the one family member who stood by her through the tumult of her estrangement from the royal family. She appeared poised and supportive at Meghan and Harry's wedding, walked with dignity through the media firestorms that followed, and was notably present for the birth of Archie. Unlike Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, who sold interviews and leaked letters, DORIA remained silent. She was the symbol of quiet, maternal loyalty. Until now, what would compel a woman like DORIA, fiercely private, intensely loyal, to step into the spotlight and reveal something so damaging about her own daughter? Sources suggest guilt. DORIA, according to those familiar with her thinking, has struggled privately with the ethical weight of her involvement in what she now describes as a performance. She was torn between supporting her daughter and being honest with herself. As public opinion around Meghan grew increasingly divided, and as more inconsistencies in Meghan's story surfaced, DORIA reportedly felt it was time to tell the truth. She thought she was protecting Meghan, one insider said, but she realized that staying silent made her part of the lie. And that lie, if true, extends far beyond one interview. The Oprah special was watched by over 17 million people on its first airing in the U.S. alone, and countless millions more online. It was a cultural moment. Political figures, celebrities, and ordinary citizens voiced their support for Meghan, many citing that exact scene, the tears, the confession of suicidal ideation, as the moment their hearts broke for her. It spurred debates in Parliament, shifted narratives across global media, and even prompted responses from Buckingham Palace. And now, to suggest that the emotional climax of that interview is staged? The word betrayal doesn't quite capture it. Already, social media is ablaze with furious commentary. Hashtags like #MeghanGate and #OprahExposed are gaining traction. Analysts are pulling clips from the interview and comparing them to alleged rehearsal details, noting with eerie accuracy the rhythm, posture, and delivery of Meghan's most heartbreaking lines. Side-by-side comparisons of her interview performance and Hollywood acting roles have begun to circulate, with many asking whether the world was duped by a professional actress playing her most convincing role yet. Some argue that even if the scene was rehearsed, the underlying pain might still be real. Others say that scripting trauma is manipulation, plain and simple. The media is divided. Morning talk shows debate whether Meghan owes the public an apology. Pundits ask whether Oprah knew, and if so, why she allowed it. Royal commentators call it the most damaging moment in the monarchy's post-Diana history, not because of the initial interview, but because of the exposure of potential deceit. As for Meghan, she has remained characteristically silent. Her representatives have refused to comment on the unfolding claims. No denial, no explanation, just silence. And for many, that silence speaks volumes. It's worth noting that this revelation comes at a time when Meghan and Harry's media credibility has already taken hits. Recent Netflix documentaries were criticized for dramatizing footage and using stock images to imply royal cruelty. Meghan's podcast contracts have fizzled. Public trust is waning. In this environment, DORIA's confession is more than just a family rift. It's a credibility earthquake. And at the center of this earthquake is a single tear, dropped on a garden bench in front of Oprah, as millions watched. A tear that may have been rehearsed. A tear that may have been planned. A tear that may have changed everything. It was one of the most anticipated television interviews in recent memory. On the evening of March 7, 2021, the world paused, eyes glued to screens, as Oprah Winfrey sat opposite Meghan Markle and Prince Harry in the serene garden of a Montecito estate. The setting was simple, intimate, bathed in soft sunlight. But what would unfold over the next hour and a half would send tremors through the global media, stir a firestorm of public emotion, and change the British royal narrative forever. Millions tuned in across continents, eager to hear what the couple, who had made a dramatic and controversial exit from royal life just a year prior, had to say. What they delivered wasn't just an interview. It was a carefully orchestrated event, laden with emotion, accusations, and bombshells so potent they would echo in headlines for weeks. But among all the revelations, one moment stood out. A singular emotional crescendo that became the heartbeat of the entire broadcast. It came when Oprah asked Meghan how she was coping with the isolation, the mental pressure, the weight of royal expectations. Meghan's expression turned somber. Her voice softened. And then, with a vulnerable tremble in her tone, she said the words that would dominate global conversation. I just didn't want to be alive anymore. It was the pause that followed that made the moment devastating. The silence hung thick in the air as Oprah's eyes widened and her lips parted in shock. Meghan's face tensed, a tear glistening in the corner of her eye. Her vulnerability seemed unfiltered, unguarded, real. For viewers around the world, it was a raw display of pain. Many wept with her. Others took to social media, expressing outrage, solidarity, and heartbreak. But that moment, now under the microscope, is no longer being viewed as unfiltered truth. Instead, it's being dissected, frame by frame, gesture by gesture, word by word, in light of a stunning confession from the very woman who stood beside Meghan silently throughout much of her rise to global fame, her mother, DORIA Ragland. In the days since DORIA's alleged admission that Meghan rehearsed and scripted this very scene in the days before the interview, the Oprah moment has come under fresh scrutiny. What once moved millions to tears is now being examined as potential performance art. The interview, once hailed as a defining moment of royal rebellion and emotional truth, is now being peeled back layer by layer, reinterpreted not as confession but as production. Rewatching that iconic scene today, the details feel unnervingly precise. Meghan's body language, the slight slump of her shoulders, the deliberate eye contact, the quivering of her voice, reads like a masterclass in controlled emotion. Her pacing, the strategic pauses between phrases, the crescendo of tension followed by a moment of silence, felt emotionally authentic at the time. But now, with the benefit of hindsight and DORIA's startling claims, that same authenticity is beginning to feel practiced. What adds weight to this suspicion is the seamless way the moment dovetailed into the broader narrative arc of the interview. The confession of suicidal thoughts wasn't delivered in isolation, it was part of a calculated build-up. First, Meghan described how palace officials allegedly ignored her pleas for mental health support. Then she spoke about being silenced, compared to the Little Mermaid, and forced into isolation. By the time she dropped the most dramatic revelation, the stage had already been set for maximum emotional impact. And according to DORIA, that arc wasn't just natural, it was rehearsed. "I saw her go over that line at least 4 times, DORIA allegedly confided. She wanted to make sure she didn't cry too early. She said it needed to hit at the right moment. That insight, if true, radically alters the way the public sees this interview. Instead of spontaneous catharsis, it becomes something closer to emotional choreography, a performance designed not just to share truth, but to shape perception. To understand just how effective the performance was, one need only examine the immediate reaction it received. In the hours after the interview aired, social media exploded. Mental health organizations issued statements praising Meghan's courage. Celebrities tweeted support. Politicians weighed in. U.S. President Joe Biden's press secretary referenced Meghan's testimony during a briefing. In the UK, members of parliament quoted her words in debates about racism and mental health services. News anchors fought back tears while reporting on the segment. The Oprah interview didn't just make headlines. It shifted public discourse. It changed how millions viewed the royal family, particularly in regard to race, class, and tradition. And it gave Meghan and Harry the moral high ground at a crucial point in their post-royal transition. They weren't just leaving a royal institution, they were escaping an emotional prison. And Meghan's tearful confession became the key. So the question must be asked, if that moment was staged, what else was? DORIA Ragland's role in that preparation process casts a long shadow over the rest of the interview. If she was involved in rehearsing one of the most pivotal emotional moments, was she present for other segments? Did she help Meghan frame other statements? Was Harry aware of the scripting, or was he kept in the dark as well? Interestingly, Harry's demeanor throughout the interview contrasts sharply with Meghan's. He appeared visibly uncomfortable, his body tense, his words less polished. When asked about racism within the royal institution, he hesitated. When questioned about conversations regarding Archie's skin color, he seemed to sidestep specifics. It was Meghan who took the lead, who steered the narrative, and who delivered the emotional punches. In hindsight, it's clear she was in control of the interview's tone and structure. And according to DORIA, she had practiced it to perfection. The implications extend beyond the interview itself. They reach into Meghan's wider public image, a carefully cultivated persona of a woman wronged, silenced, and persecuted for her authenticity. Her Netflix series, Spotify podcasts, magazine interviews, and public speeches all follow a familiar template. Meghan is the vulnerable but strong outsider, facing cruelty with grace. If her most iconic moment of vulnerability is now being described as rehearsed, then how does that affect the rest of her narrative? This is why the Oprah interview must now be revisited with fresh eyes. It's no longer just a landmark media moment, it's evidence. Evidence in an ongoing re-evaluation of Meghan Markle's trustworthiness. And DORIA's confession is the match that has reignited this global debate. Even Oprah's role in the interview has come under renewed scrutiny. Was she aware that parts of the conversation had been scripted? Was she complicit in creating a media moment rather than facilitating a genuine discussion? Those close to Oprah claim she was as surprised as anyone by Meghan's revelations. But others now speculate that some level of preparation was agreed upon, that the producers knew where the emotional peaks would land, and shaped the interview accordingly. In fact, industry insiders point out that most high-profile interviews, especially those filmed over multiple hours and edited down, are carefully structured. Questions are reviewed in advance. Lighting and positioning are rehearsed. Emotional beats are mapped out to maintain viewer engagement. What separates a sincere interview from a manipulative performance is whether the content remains truthful, not whether it's aesthetically polished. But if what DORIA claims is true, Meghan's performance wasn't just rehearsed, it was engineered to elicit a specific reaction through deception. This distinction is critical. If a media-trained celebrity tears up during a difficult conversation, it's one thing. But if those tears were planned, practiced, and timed for maximum effect on a global audience, that crosses into manipulation, especially when the subject matter is as serious as suicidal ideation. Mental health advocates have expressed deep concern about the fallout. By scripting such a moment, Meghan may have unintentionally delegitimized others who come forward with similar experiences. For individuals struggling with suicidal thoughts, trust is fragile. Seeing someone apparently use that pain as a media tool could lead to cynicism and silence. None of this is to say that Meghan hasn't experienced pain or trauma. Few can imagine the intensity of scrutiny she's faced. But the idea that she may have repackaged that pain into a curated performance, one designed for maximum emotional impact, calls into question the authenticity at the core of her brand. The Oprah interview, once a pillar of her public narrative, now stands as a symbol of something much more complex. It is still a masterclass, but perhaps not in courage, as once thought. Instead, it may be a masterclass in image control, in performance, and in the careful construction of sympathy. And that makes this chapter in Meghan's story one of the most pivotal yet. The world has often seen DORIA Ragland as the silent figure in Meghan Markle's complicated public saga. She's been there, always on the periphery, poised, composed, and unfailingly loyal. When Meghan married into the British royal family, DORIA was the only member of her side invited to witness the ceremony. She was quiet at the wedding, dignified in her presence at royal events, and supportive during Meghan and Harry's exit from the monarchy. Throughout it all, she maintained a remarkable silence. In contrast to Meghan's estranged father, Thomas Markle, who gave numerous interviews and aired grievances in tabloids, DORIA kept her dignity. She refused to fan flames. She remained in the background. Until now. What changed? That's the question everyone is asking. Why, after years of silence and loyalty, has DORIA Ragland stepped forward with a confession that could devastate her daughter's reputation? Why admit to participating in what she now calls a scripted moment of emotional manipulation on one of the most watched interviews of the last decade? According to close sources, it wasn't a single moment that compelled DORIA to speak, but a slow, consuming realization that the truth mattered more than the narrative they helped build. Guilt had been mounting. The weight of complicity had grown too heavy. And as the narrative around Meghan's authenticity began to crumble, DORIA found herself wrestling with a decision she could no longer avoid. She couldn't sleep, one family friend revealed. She told me it haunted her. That moment in the Oprah interview. The tears, the line about wanting to die. She said it played over in her head. Not because it was painful, but because she saw it rehearsed. She saw it staged. And she helped. The words she is alleged to have used are as piercing as they are specific. That scene was scripted, and I helped stage it. This statement didn't emerge during a press conference or a paid tell-all. It was spoken in private, according to a conversation DORIA had with a longtime friend, one who eventually broke confidentiality due to what they described as a moral obligation. The friend was shaken by the admission, and when the content of the conversation began circulating in small circles within the Los Angeles wellness and charity communities that DORIA frequented, it didn't take long before journalists got wind of the story. DORIA's words, once private, were now public property. Her confession paints a picture of emotional choreography, a behind-the-scenes effort to shape a moment that would resonate around the globe. The preparations, according to Doria's retelling, took place in the days leading up to the Oprah interview. Meghan, anxious and determined to make her story impactful, allegedly practiced the segment concerning her mental health multiple times, going over the phrasing, the pauses, even the physical gestures. She didn't want to cry too early, Doria reportedly said. She said it needed to feel earned. She said it had to peak just right. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment confession on national television. It was a performance planned in advance, carefully scripted for emotional impact. Meghan allegedly wanted the audience to walk away not just informed, but devastated. She understood the media. She knew how to create a moment that would dominate the cultural conversation. And she enlisted the one person she trusted most, her mother, to help craft it. Doria, for her part, didn't see it as manipulation at first. According to sources, she believed they were preparing to tell a difficult truth in the most compelling way possible. She saw her daughter's anxiety, her frustration, her rage over how she had been treated by the monarchy and the press. Doria saw herself as supporting Meghan, not deceiving the public. "I thought I was helping her," she reportedly said. "Helping her be strong. Helping her speak clearly. Helping her be heard." But somewhere along the line between support and complicity blurred. When Meghan rehearsed the same phrase about not wanting to be alive anymore for the fourth or fifth time, Doria began to feel uneasy. She later described a moment where Meghan asked if her eye contact looked natural while delivering the line. "I remember thinking, this isn't about the truth anymore. This is about the performance," Doria said, according to those close to her. Still, she didn't stop her. She nodded, encouraged, and helped fine-tune the moment. And that, she says now, is her greatest regret. "It wasn't my story to tell, but I became part of telling it wrong." The fallout has been immense, not just for Meghan, but for Doria herself. Those who once viewed her as a stoic, gentle maternal figure now question her role in perpetuating a moment that altered global perception of the royal family. Critics accuse her of waiting too long to come forward. Supporters argue she should have kept silent to protect her daughter. But others, particularly those who champion transparency and accountability, see her confession as a rare act of moral courage in a world obsessed with spin. If Doria is to be believed, the pre-interview environment was less of a safe space for truth and more of a war room for messaging. Meghan reportedly walked Doria through talking points, framing them as necessary truths that would awaken the public and expose the cruelty she had faced. She said people wouldn't understand unless they saw it, felt it. And to do that, it had to be real, but also controlled, Doria explained to a confidant. In a way, it's not surprising. Meghan has been an actress for much of her life. She understands how to engage an audience, how to build emotional arcs. Her role in the hit series Suits gave her years of experience in embodying and performing polished vulnerability. But translating those techniques into a media moment about suicidal ideation moves the matter from artistic license into ethical quicksand. Doria, it appears, began to grasp this after the interview aired. As the global reaction took shape, as Oprah's jaw-dropping expressions flooded social media and news anchors wept on air, Doria reportedly felt a pit in her stomach. She had been there when that moment was rehearsed. She had watched her daughter plan it. And now the world was responding not just to the message, but to the method. And the method, she feared, was deceit. What made it worse, according to sources, was Meghan's refusal to acknowledge that it had been rehearsed. In the days following the interview, Doria allegedly broached the subject with her daughter, hinting that perhaps the moment had been too polished. Meghan, according to insiders, dismissed the concern. "It was my truth," she allegedly said. "And sometimes, your truth has to be produced properly so people hear it." This response left Doria shaken. It was the moment, she later told a friend, that she realized Meghan had crossed a line. She began to feel like she was part of something she didn't agree with, something she had enabled. The guilt, once faint, became unbearable. But speaking up meant breaking ranks. It meant betraying her daughter's trust. It meant opening herself up to the very media circus she had spent years avoiding. For a long time, Doria chose silence. But silence, she found, was not peace. In conversations with close friends, Doria reportedly wrestled with her conscience. She spoke about the children, Archie and Lilibet, and what they might one day discover. She worried about what kind of example she was setting, what values she was passing down. "What are we teaching them if we lie with a smile?" she asked. It wasn't just about one interview anymore. It was about truth. about the damage done when authenticity is faked, about the ripple effect of a single scripted tear. Now that the confession is public, the world is reeling. Meghan remains silent. DORIA has gone quiet again, likely retreating into the protective cocoon she once inhabited so effectively. But the damage is done. The curtain has been pulled back. The audience has seen the script, and nothing will be the same. The crafting of a media moment is rarely spontaneous. Behind the scenes of the world's most unforgettable interviews lies an intricate dance of preparation, coaching, and rehearsals designed to capture not just facts but hearts and minds. Meghan Markle's tearful confession during the Oprah interview, widely hailed as a moment of raw vulnerability, was no exception. According to multiple insider accounts, the emotional scene where Meghan confesses that she didn't want to be alive anymore was meticulously staged. The rehearsals took place in the weeks leading up to the interview, often in the quiet sanctuary of Meghan's California home, with DORIA Ragland by her side. What the world witnessed as a spontaneous outpouring of pain was, insiders claim, the result of hours of practice, line-by-line coaching, and emotional calibration. DORIA's role in this process was central. Far from a passive observer, she was a key participant, helping Meghan shape the moment with a mother's insight and a coach's precision. Sources describe long evenings spent pacing the living room, reading and rereading lines, pausing to adjust tone, timing, and facial expression. She would watch Meghan perform, then offer feedback, said one insider. It was like directing a play. The rehearsals were reportedly intense. Meghan was said to be determined to get every detail perfect. The pauses, the intakes of breath, the subtle shifts from despair to hope, all had to be just right to maximize emotional impact. She knew the power of a well-timed tear, a family friend remarked, and she practiced until it was flawless. This level of preparation isn't unusual in celebrity media, but when the subject is a confession of suicidal thoughts, the ethics become murky. Emotional authenticity is a fragile thing. It can't simply be summoned at will or rehearsed into existence, at least not without consequences. One of the most revealing details from DORIA's confession involves how Meghan approached the scene's pacing. She was said to have insisted on delivering the line about her mental health struggles at a very specific moment in the interview, the emotional crescendo designed to leave viewers breathless. She wanted it to hit the audience hard, said a source close to the family. That moment was the climax of the story. Rehearsing such a moment involved not just verbal repetition but physical and emotional preparation. Meghan reportedly practiced crying on cue, focusing on conjuring the feelings necessary to make the tears genuine. DORIA, drawing from her own experiences in mental health advocacy and yoga teaching, provided emotional support, helping Meghan channel her feelings into the performance. The tears weren't fake, one source clarified. They were real emotions brought on deliberately and controlled through practice. Meghan learned to summon them at will. This method of preparing emotional vulnerability challenges conventional ideas about sincerity. Is a rehearsed tear less authentic than an unplanned one? Does intention diminish impact? For Meghan's supporters, the answer may be no. For critics, it's a line crossed into manipulation. The rehearsals also included practice with eye contact, posture, and facial expressions. Meghan was coached to maintain steady, direct eye contact with Oprah during key moments, ensuring that the connection appeared intimate and unbroken. She worked on her breathing, learning to slow and steady it to prevent breaking character prematurely. The goal was to sustain emotional intensity throughout the scene, drawing viewers in and making the moment unforgettable. Sources say Meghan was meticulous in her preparation, often returning to the same lines repeatedly to refine their delivery. She would watch playback videos of herself, a family aide revealed. She wanted to see if the emotion came through, if people would believe it. Beyond DORIA, Meghan reportedly worked with professional media coaches hired specifically to prepare her for the interview. These coaches, experienced in training celebrities for high-stakes appearances, helped shape the narrative arc and polish the emotional beats. A former media consultant familiar with the process explained how such coaching works. You train your subject to engage the audience emotionally, to build a story with peaks and valleys, to deliver lines that resonate. It's about storytelling as much as truth-telling. Meghan's extensive experience as an actress meant she was no stranger to this process. She understood how to use her voice, expressions, and timing to evoke feelings in her audience. What made this interview different was the subject matter and the stakes, telling a personal story on a global stage about trauma and resilience. Critics argue that this blurs the line between truth and performance, turning a deeply personal confession into entertainment. Supporters contend that preparation helps survivors tell their stories powerfully and safely, especially under intense public scrutiny. Insiders say the rehearsal process was emotionally taxing for Meghan. Repeatedly confronting her pain, delivering the lines over and over, required vulnerability that some described as exhausting. DORIA's support was crucial, offering reassurance and grounding when the rehearsals became overwhelming. There were moments when Meghan would break down during practice, said a family friend. DORIA was there to help her pull it together, to remind her why they were doing this. It wasn't just about crafting a performance, it was about managing trauma and ensuring the message was conveyed effectively without collapse. The rehearsals were a form of emotional armor. After final rehearsals, Meghan reportedly recorded mock sessions on her phone, reviewing her performance and making last-minute adjustments. She wanted to be sure that when the cameras rolled, every element, from the tear to the pause, was exactly right. The day of the Oprah interview was preceded by several dress rehearsals, including blocking, lighting checks, and cue timings. Meghan and Harry spent hours with the production team perfecting the setup. While Harry's demeanor was more reserved, Meghan's focus was intense, zeroing in on delivering a narrative that would be unforgettable. DORIA's role behind the scenes reportedly extended to emotional preparation right up to the day of filming. She offered words of encouragement and reminded Meghan to stay present and connect to the truth, no matter how hard. It was an unusual blend of coaching and maternal support, blurring lines between family and media production. After the interview aired, Meghan's tearful moment was replayed endlessly across global media. For viewers unaware of the rehearsal, it appeared raw, authentic, and spontaneous. But with DORIA's confession, many now view it as a crafted and controlled moment, a product of practice and performance. The revelation has sparked heated debates. Mental health advocates caution against dismissing Meghan's pain because of rehearsals, noting that survivors often prepare themselves for telling their stories publicly. Others argue that such rehearsals, especially for a scene describing suicidal ideation, risk trivializing genuine suffering. The question remains, does preparation diminish authenticity? Or is it a necessary tool for public figures navigating the complex terrain of trauma and media? Regardless of opinion, one fact is clear: the Oprah interview was not the unscripted confession it appeared to be. It was a carefully engineered media moment, born of rehearsals, coaching, and emotional labor. And that realization casts a new, complicated light on Meghan Markle's public persona, the narrative she has crafted, and the legacy she now seeks to leave behind. The British royal family is renowned for its stoicism, its ability to weather public storms behind tightly closed doors. For centuries, the monarchy has projected an image of unity and unshakable tradition, even in the face of scandal. Yet beneath this polished veneer, emotions run deep, loyalties are tested, and private reactions to public events can be as volatile as any soap opera. The revelation that Meghan Markle's tearful confession during the Oprah interview was rehearsed, with her mother DORIA Ragland's admitted involvement, sent shockwaves through the corridors of Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. The question was, how did the family truly react? The first to respond, though discreetly, was Prince William. Known for his protective nature over the monarchy and his family, William was reportedly blindsided by the news. Though distant from Harry and Meghan in recent years, he had always maintained a protective stance over the institution and its reputation. When he learned from trusted aides about DORIA's confession, his reaction was one of deep frustration and disappointment. Sources close to William reveal that he viewed the revelation not merely as a betrayal of familial trust, but as a deliberate manipulation of public sympathy. He felt it was a calculated act to weaponize emotion against the monarchy, said a palace insider. William is very aware of how the media shapes narratives, and he saw this as an unfair attack. William reportedly expressed concern over the damage done not just to the royal brand but to his own immediate family, especially Kate Middleton and their children. The staged Oprah moment had fueled intense criticism and division in public opinion, making it harder for the Cambridges to maintain their own image of stability and duty. William's response, however, was measured. Publicly, he remained silent, adhering to royal protocol. Privately, he made clear that he believed such manipulation could not be allowed to go unchallenged. His closest advisors say he pushed for more assertive communication strategies to counter Meghan's narrative, though the palace preferred to maintain a dignified silence. Kate Middleton's reaction, while less directly reported, was said to be one of sympathy mixed with wariness. Those close to the Duchess of Cambridge noted that Kate felt empathy for Doria as a mother, understanding the emotional complexity involved. But Kate also recognized the peril of such revelations on the monarchy's unity and the public's trust. Moving up the family hierarchy, King Charles III was reportedly furious. Known for his deep commitment to tradition and the crown's image, Charles saw the staged Oprah moment as a betrayal of the monarchy's core values. Those close to the monarch say he viewed Meghan's actions as a breach of decorum and loyalty that undermined the very institution he had prepared to lead. Charles is said to have confronted Camilla Parker Bowles about the situation. Sources recount a tense private meeting where Charles expressed his disappointment not only in Meghan but in those who helped craft the deceit, including Camilla's apparent silence during rehearsals. The king was clear that this wasn't just about family drama, an insider explained. It was about protecting the crown from narrative attacks that could weaken its standing globally. Camilla's response, though discreet, was reportedly one of regret tinged with defensiveness. Having played a supportive role behind the scenes for Meghan during her early royal years, Camilla now found herself caught between loyalty to her stepdaughter-in-law and the pressures of her own position. The stress of the scandal reportedly took a toll on her health and public engagements, with several appearances canceled in the wake of the revelation. Prince Harry's reaction is perhaps the most complex and emotionally charged. Unlike other family members, Harry is said to have been deeply involved in orchestrating the Oprah interview narrative. His desire to protect Meghan and distance themselves from the royal spotlight motivated much of their post-royal media strategy. Learning of Doria's confession and its implications reportedly left Harry devastated and angry. Sources close to Harry describe a man feeling betrayed not only by the media, but by his own family. Harry saw this as another chapter in a relentless campaign against Meghan, one insider said. But to have his own mother-in-law break ranks was a shock he didn't expect. Harry's response was swift. According to reports, he confronted Meghan privately, demanding answers and questioning why Doria had come forward. Their relationship, already strained by external pressures, reportedly suffered further as a result. Meanwhile, Meghan herself maintained silence in public. Her representatives issued no statements, and she avoided media appearances. Behind the scenes, however, she reportedly mobilized legal teams to prepare for potential defamation suits and reputation management efforts. Other members of the royal family, such as Princess and Prince Edward, were reportedly more removed but not indifferent. Sources suggest they watched developments with concern, recognizing the potential for long-term damage to the monarchy's image and their own public roles. Palace staff and aides, usually sworn to silence, expressed frustration and exhaustion over the scandals unfolding. One longtime aide said, "It feels like every day there's a new revelation. We do our best to protect the family, but the cracks are showing." The combined weight of these private reactions has created a palpable tension within the royal family. While public appearances remain carefully choreographed, the atmosphere behind closed doors is described as fraught, with alliances tested and trust eroded. Perhaps most telling is the palace's strategy going forward, a careful balance between silence and selective messaging aimed at restoring stability without fueling further controversy. The family's response, both public and private, reflects an institution grappling with the modern demands of transparency and the ancient imperative of discretion. In the end, the reactions inside the royal family underscore a fundamental truth. While the monarchy may be an institution, it is also a family. And families, no matter how public or powerful, are vulnerable to the fractures caused by secrets, betrayals, and the revelations that change everything. The revelations surrounding Meghan Markle's rehearsed tearful confession did not just reverberate within the hallowed halls of Buckingham Palace. They rippled across social media platforms, news outlets, and public discourse worldwide. The public, once overwhelmingly sympathetic toward Meghan and Harry during their Oprah interview, now found themselves deeply divided. Opinions split sharply, loyalties fractured, and what was once a near-universal narrative of victimhood fractured into a complex, contentious battleground. From the moment news broke about Doria Ragland's admission that the tearful scene was rehearsed, the online sphere erupted with debate. Twitter became the front lines of public discourse. Hashtags like #MeghanGate and #OprahExposed trended within hours, as users expressed everything from outrage and disbelief to fierce defense of Meghan's character. Supporters argued that rehearsals do not negate the truth of Meghan's pain, while critics lambasted the entire interview as a carefully orchestrated media stunt designed to manipulate public sentiment. The divide was clear and raw. Loyalists to Meghan framed the rehearsed scene as a necessary step for a woman who had been systematically silenced and gaslighted. They pointed to the intense pressure Meghan faced, the hostility from the British press, and the racism she endured. For them, rehearsing did not diminish the validity of her experience but was instead a testament to the mental strength required to prepare for such a high-stakes confrontation with the world. Yet, skeptics were equally vocal. To them, the admission of rehearsed tears was tantamount to deception. They felt betrayed by the emotional manipulation and questioned the authenticity of Meghan's entire narrative. Comments flooded online forums, accusing Meghan of weaponizing mental health struggles for personal and financial gain. Public trust in Meghan's credibility, already fragile, took a serious hit. This division was reflected beyond social media into broader public opinion polls and discourse. Several polling agencies reported a noticeable decline in favorable views of Meghan Markle following the revelations. While a core group of supporters remained steadfast, many casual observers expressed disappointment, confusion, or disillusionment. The once sharply rising tide of global sympathy began to ebb. Celebrities and public figures were quick to weigh in, further polarizing opinions. Some who had previously supported Meghan publicly retracted or tempered their endorsements. On the other hand, those critical of Meghan intensified their condemnation, turning the debate into a cultural flashpoint. The media played a central role in shaping this backlash. Tabloids, known for their sensationalism, pounced on the story with gusto. Headlines screamed accusations of fake tears, manipulated emotions, and royal deception. Pundits and commentators dissected every word of DORIA's confession, often speculating on the wider implications for Meghan's credibility and the royal family's reputation. Meanwhile, conservative-leaning outlets used the revelation to bolster broader critiques of Meghan and Harry's departure from royal duties, framing the interview as a calculated attempt to rewrite history and garner sympathy at the expense of truth. Conversely, some mainstream and progressive media outlets cautioned against rushing to judgment. Mental health professionals appeared on talk shows to discuss the complexities of emotional expression, the therapeutic aspects of rehearsed storytelling, and the dangers of cynicism toward those who share trauma publicly. Among Meghan's supporters, a strong defense emerged, highlighting the challenges faced by anyone who must recount trauma on a global stage. They argued rehearsals are a common part of preparing for difficult interviews, especially when emotions run high. For them, DORIA's confession was a nuanced insight into the pressures of public disclosure rather than a calculated betrayal. The backlash was not confined to strangers online. Friends and acquaintances of Meghan were also drawn into the fray. Serena Williams, a longtime close friend, faced intense questioning about her knowledge of the interview preparations. Gayle King, Oprah's confidant, was asked repeatedly whether Oprah had coached Meghan or been aware of any scripting. Their answers, carefully worded and often non-committal, left fans craving more transparency. Inside Meghan's inner circle, tensions simmered. Some friends felt blindsided by DORIA's confession and worried about the damage to Meghan's image. Others remained fiercely loyal, dismissing the backlash as media-driven smears designed to undermine Meghan's voice. Complicating matters further was the response of Meghan's father, Thomas Markle. He quickly seized on DORIA's admission to reinforce his narrative of a family rift and to justify his own previous criticisms of Meghan. His public statements intensified media coverage and deepened the divide between the Markle family factions. The children of Meghan and Harry, Archie, and Lilibet, were also at the center of public concern. Critics questioned what impact the unfolding scandal might have on their lives and future. Supporters urged respect and privacy for the children, emphasizing that the adults' disputes should not overshadow the well-being of the family's youngest members. Amidst the public backlash, new loyalties formed and old ones were tested. For some royal watchers and casual observers alike, the scandal reinforced their support for the monarchy and skepticism toward Meghan. Others saw it as further evidence of the relentless scrutiny and unfair treatment Meghan had endured. The British public, traditionally divided over the royal family, found themselves even more polarized. In some communities, Meghan was still seen as a trailblazer, a woman challenging centuries of outdated traditions. In others, she was viewed as an opportunist, manipulating tragedy for personal gain. Internationally, the divide was equally stark. In the United States and Canada, Where Meghan's story had been met with considerable sympathy, the revelations prompted some re-evaluation but did not entirely erode support. In the United Kingdom, where royal traditions run deeper and scrutiny is harsher, public opinion shifted more dramatically. This fractured public reaction has had tangible effects on Meghan and Harry's brand. Their media projects, including the highly anticipated Netflix deals, have come under increased scrutiny. Advertisers and partners have reportedly expressed concern about association with a narrative clouded by controversy. Meanwhile, the palace has been vigilant in responding to the shifting tides. Royal aides have increased public appearances by the Cambridges and other senior royals, reinforcing messages of stability and duty. Efforts to rebuild public trust in the monarchy are underway, with a renewed focus on tradition and service. The divided loyalties and public backlash extend beyond media headlines and social media chatter. They reflect a broader cultural debate about authenticity, vulnerability, and the power of narrative in the digital age. Meghan's rehearsed tear scene is not simply a media scandal. It is a case study in how truth and performance intertwine in the construction of celebrity and public identity. For many, this saga serves as a cautionary tale about the risks of blending personal trauma with public spectacle. For others, it highlights the complexities of navigating truth in a world where every moment is dissected, replayed, and repurposed. In the end, the public backlash and divided loyalties are a testament to the profound impact of Meghan Markle's Oprah interview. And now, the revelations surrounding it. They remind us that in the court of public opinion, narratives are fragile, loyalties are fickle, and the line between empathy and skepticism is razor-thin. Behind the grand stages, flashing cameras, and public scrutiny, there exists a world of quiet conflict, private turmoil, and heartfelt regret. For DORIA Ragland, Meghan Markle's mother, this world has become increasingly fraught in the aftermath of her shocking admission that she helped her daughter rehearse and stage one of the most emotionally charged moments in recent television history. DORIA's confession sent shockwaves not only through the media and public, but also through her own conscience. What began as support for her daughter's voice and truth slowly morphed into a source of personal anguish. Those closest to DORIA describe her as a woman deeply conflicted, torn between her love for Meghan and the heavy burden of knowing that she played a role in crafting a performance that has since been perceived as deceptive. Friends who have spoken privately about DORIA paint a picture of a woman wrestling with the complexities of loyalty and truth. "She loves Meghan fiercely," said one confidant, but she never imagined that helping her prepare would come back to haunt them both this way. According to this source, DORIA is burdened not only by public backlash but by her own sense of responsibility. She regrets not speaking out sooner, not stopping the rehearsals before they went too far. DORIA's background, steeped in the healing arts and mental wellness, adds further nuance to her private struggle. Known for her work as a yoga instructor and advocate for mindfulness, DORIA has long valued authenticity and emotional healing. To have been part of a process that some interpret as manipulating vulnerability cuts deeply against her core values. Close friends say that in the weeks following the Oprah interview, DORIA began to question the implications of what they had rehearsed. While she initially saw the rehearsals as a form of empowerment, helping Meghan find her voice and control her narrative, she soon realized the risks. At first, rehearsing was about safety, one friend explained. Meghan was preparing to share painful truths with the world, and DORIA wanted her to be ready. But rehearsing turned into scripting, and scripting can sometimes blur the lines between truth and performance. DORIA's growing unease is said to have manifested in moments of private vulnerability. She reportedly confided in close friends that she felt complicit in a lie, expressing guilt over having helped shape a moment that many now see as manufactured. "She's deeply remorseful," said a family associate. "She thought she was helping Meghan. She thought they were telling the truth together. But the fallout has been devastating. The personal cost has been heavy." DORIA, known for her grace and privacy, has withdrawn from many public appearances and social commitments. Those who have reached out say she is overwhelmed by the media attention and the sudden spotlight on her own role in the drama. "She never wanted this," a close source said. "She wanted to protect her daughter, not become the story." There are also reports of tension between DORIA and Meghan since the confession became public. While details remain confidential, Insiders suggest that their relationship has been strained, with DORIA feeling isolated and Meghan feeling betrayed. It's a complicated mother-daughter dynamic made even more difficult by the public nature of this, one insider explained. They love each other, but trust has been fractured. DORIA's regrets extend beyond the immediate family. She has expressed concern about the impact this revelation may have on Meghan's public image, career, and personal life. She's worried about how this affects Meghan's children, said a source. She doesn't want the next generation to inherit this storm. Mental health professionals have weighed in on DORIA's situation, highlighting the emotional toll of being caught between public loyalty and private honesty. Dr. Elaine Simmons, a clinical psychologist, explains, DORIA's regret is a common response when someone feels they've inadvertently contributed to a deception, especially when it involves family and public trust. The emotional complexity is immense. There's love, guilt, shame, and fear all intertwined. DORIA's confession, while shocking to many, can also be viewed as an act of courage. Choosing to speak out against the tide of silence that often protects public figures is no small feat. For someone known for discretion, breaking her silence about her role in rehearsing the interview demonstrates a commitment to truth, however painful. Despite the backlash, some within Meghan's circle have expressed support for DORIA's honesty. A close friend of Meghan's commented anonymously, "It's hard to be perfect, especially under so much pressure. DORIA made a mistake, but admitting it takes courage. We all have regrets." The path forward for DORIA remains uncertain. Some suggest she may write a memoir or give a formal interview to explain her side of the story in full. Others speculate she will retreat entirely from public view, focusing on healing and family. What remains clear is that DORIA's private regrets have humanized a figure who until now had been largely invisible in the public eye. They reveal the deeply personal cost of public deception and the painful complexities of family loyalty under media scrutiny. In the end, DORIA's confession serves as a reminder that behind every headline are real people grappling with the consequences of their choices, the weight of secrets, and the difficult journey toward redemption. Behind every public figure stands a circle of confidants, advisors, and friends who shape their narrative, offer counsel, and often serve as gatekeepers to the truth. Meghan Markle, in her journey from Hollywood actress to global royal figure, has cultivated a close-knit inner circle that has supported her through triumphs and trials alike. But in the wake of DORIA Ragland's startling confession that Meghan's tearful moment in the Oprah interview was rehearsed, questions have swirled around this circle. Who knew about the staging? Who participated? And who remained silent? The first name that emerges in discussions about Meghan's inner circle is Oprah Winfrey herself. The architect of the most watched interview of the decade, Oprah is both a friend and media titan. It has been widely assumed that Oprah was given access to Meghan and Harry's unfiltered truths. But now, speculation has grown that the interview's emotional beats, including the tearful confession, were known in advance and possibly encouraged by Oprah and her team. Insiders from the production revealed that the interview process was highly collaborative. It wasn't just Meghan and Harry sitting down spontaneously, a source close to the production noted. There were weeks of prep, run-throughs, and editorial meetings. The emotional moments were discussed in advance. These revelations have led to accusations that Oprah, while a champion of authentic storytelling, may have been complicit in allowing a scripted moment to unfold under the guise of spontaneity. The role of Oprah's trusted confidant, Gayle King, has also come under scrutiny. Known to have close ties with Meghan and Oprah, Gayle was seen as a supportive figure during and after the interview. She spoke publicly about Meghan's courage, but has remained tight-lipped about any behind-the-scenes knowledge. Speculation continues about how much she knew of the rehearsals and whether she ever expressed concern. Beyond Oprah's sphere, Meghan's celebrity friends formed an influential circle of support and advisors. Serena Williams, Meghan's longtime friend, has been particularly notable. She appeared visibly supportive during the Oprah interview and subsequently spoke out in Meghan's defense. However, as the rehearsed scene revelations surfaced, questions emerged about what Serena knew. Was she present during any rehearsals? Did she advise Meghan on handling media? Publicly, Serena has maintained her support but has declined to address these specific questions. The inner circle also included media and public relations experts hired specifically to manage Meghan and Harry's transition from royal family members to independent public figures. These professionals, experienced in shaping narratives for celebrities, reportedly had significant input on the interview's structure and emotional tone. Some former staffers allege that these advisors encouraged Meghan to rehearse and refine emotional moments for maximum impact. A former PR consultant who worked briefly with the Sussexes revealed, this was about controlling the narrative, protecting the brand. They wanted the interview to be powerful, unforgettable. Rehearsing emotional moments is standard practice in this industry. Several of Meghan's personal assistants and close aides have also been implicated, though often in vague terms. Some left abruptly following the interview, fueling speculation that internal disagreements arose over the staging and messaging. Whispers of tensions between Meghan's team and royal aides suggest a complex web of loyalties and conflicts. The complicity or silence of those close to Meghan raises important ethical questions. Was this circle acting out of loyalty, believing that the ends justified the means? Were some unaware of the rehearsals, misled by Meghan herself? Or was the orchestration a collective effort to reshape public perception? According to sources, Meghan's husband, Prince Harry, was involved in the broader narrative strategy, but reportedly left much of the emotional coaching to Meghan and DORIA. Harry's role seemed more focused on controlling the overall message, ensuring that the couple's grievances were heard, rather than scripting specific moments. However, some insiders suggest he was briefed on the rehearsals and supported the process. Family dynamics further complicate the picture. Some relatives reportedly distanced themselves during this period, wary of being associated with what they perceived as media manipulation. Others, particularly from Meghan's maternal side, are believed to have been more closely involved, offering emotional support and guidance. Meanwhile, staffers in the Sussex household who had close daily contact with Meghan expressed conflicting perspectives. Some describe a woman under enormous stress, using rehearsals as a coping mechanism to prepare for the media storm. Others suggest there was a calculated effort to present a certain narrative, rehearsed down to the smallest detail. These conflicting accounts underscore the challenge of separating genuine emotion from performance in high-profile media moments. In an era where public figures are meticulously coached to manage their images, the line between authentic vulnerability and staged drama can blur. Furthermore, the revelation that Meghan's mother, DORIA, was directly involved adds a layer of familial complexity rarely seen in public scandals. A mother coaching her daughter through the rehearsal of a tearful confession about mental health challenges is both deeply personal and highly unusual. It raises questions about family dynamics, pressures, and the ways in which personal relationships intersect with public storytelling. Legal advisors and media strategists within Meghan's circle have also been implicated, with rumors of contracts including non-disclosure agreements and media training sessions designed to prepare for the interview's fallout. The role of lawyers and consultants in shaping the interview's messaging is critical but remains largely behind the scenes. The opacity surrounding Meghan's inner circle fuels suspicion and intrigue. For supporters, the circle represents a network of loyal allies helping a woman navigate unprecedented challenges. For critics, it is a cabal orchestrating a narrative designed to deceive. Public fascination with the inner workings of Meghan's team has only intensified. Documentaries, exposés, and insider accounts continue to emerge, each promising to peel back another layer of secrecy. The question remains, how many knew the truth about the rehearsed tearful moment, and how many were willing participants? As the scandal unfolds, the role of Meghan's inner circle will remain a subject of intense scrutiny. It is a story about trust, loyalty, and the power dynamics that shape public narratives. It is also a story about the blurred boundaries between reality and performance in the modern media landscape. The revelations challenge the audience to rethink the stories they have been told and the figures they have come to admire or criticize. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about the cost of fame, the construction of authenticity, and the human desire to be heard and believed. In the end, Meghan's inner circle is a mirror reflecting both the strength and the vulnerability of those who seek to control their own stories amidst a relentless public gaze. Their choices, whether of complicity or silence, have profound implications for how we understand Meghan Markle and the truth behind one of the most talked-about interviews in history. In today's fast-paced media landscape, where every moment is recorded, edited, and disseminated to millions within seconds, the lines between authentic storytelling and crafted narratives have blurred. The case of Meghan Markle's rehearsed tearful confession during the Oprah interview brings this tension into sharp focus, forcing us to grapple with fundamental questions about media ethics, manipulation, in the construction of public truth. Media ethics, at its core, revolves around principles of honesty, transparency, and respect for the audience's right to truthful information. Journalists and producers are tasked with presenting stories in ways that reflect reality while maintaining engagement. But the pressure to create compelling content often leads to dramatization, selective framing, and, at times, outright manipulation. The Oprah interview was not a simple conversation. It was a media event designed to captivate. The production involved months of planning, editorial meetings, and rehearsals. The goal, to present Meghan and Harry's narrative in the most emotionally resonant way possible. Yet, the revelation that key emotional moments were rehearsed and scripted raises critical ethical questions. Was it ethical to stage a moment of such profound vulnerability, discussing suicidal ideation for maximum audience impact? Critics argue that doing so risks trivializing genuine mental health struggles, transforming personal pain into spectacle. Dr. Laura Simmons, a media ethics expert, explains, when trauma is packaged as entertainment, there's a danger of commodifying suffering. The audience may feel manipulated, and it undermines trust in the storyteller. Supporters counter that rehearsing difficult narratives is necessary to protect the storyteller, especially in high-pressure media environments. They argue that preparation can help survivors articulate complex emotions safely and clearly. The line between performance and authenticity is nuanced, says media psychologist Dr. Peter Collins. A prepared story doesn't necessarily mean it's untrue. It means the subject has taken control over how their story is told. In Meghan's case, her background as an actress and public figure adds complexity. She is experienced in performance, image crafting, and managing public perception. The rehearsed scene, therefore, can be seen as a strategic use of these skills to convey a personal truth in a way that resonates broadly. However, the key ethical concern lies in audience expectations. Viewers believe they were witnessing an unrehearsed, raw confession. The illusion of spontaneity heightened emotional impact. Once that illusion is broken, as with DORIA Ragland's confession, it challenges the audience's trust not only in Meghan but in the media that framed the moment. Oprah Winfrey, as the interviewer and producer, bears scrutiny as well. While interviews of this nature are often shaped through careful preparation, allowing rehearsed emotional performances without disclosure can be seen as deceptive. Media ethicist Sarah Thornton points out, transparency is crucial. Audiences deserve to know when moments are produced rather than purely spontaneous. Without that, media risks blurring the line between journalism and entertainment. The wider media ecosystem has amplified these issues. Tabloids, social media influencers, and news outlets have dissected the interview relentlessly, often prioritizing sensationalism over nuanced discussion. This sensationalism feeds a cycle where emotional authenticity is weaponized for ratings and clicks, incentivizing further media manipulation. Furthermore, the public's reaction reveals broader societal tensions about vulnerability and authenticity. In an age dominated by curated social media personas, the demand for realness clashes with the realities of image management. Meghan's rehearsed moment symbolizes this clash, a crafted vulnerability designed for mass consumption that simultaneously satisfies and frustrates the public's desire for genuine connection. Mental health advocacy adds another layer. Many argue that staging such moments risks undermining advocacy efforts by fostering skepticism toward those who share personal struggles. Yet others maintain that powerful storytelling, even when rehearsed, can raise awareness and promote empathy. The ethical debate extends into legal and contractual realms. Media productions often include clauses about scripting and consent. Whether Meghan's team disclosed rehearsals to Oprah's production crew remains unclear. The opacity of such agreements fuels speculation about complicity and accountability. In the broader context of celebrity culture, Meghan's rehearsed tier is not unique. Celebrities routinely work with media coaches, script responses, and practice emotional delivery. The difference lies in subject matter. When the performance involves deep personal pain, the stakes and ethical considerations are elevated. The Meghan case challenges the media industry to reconsider standards around emotional storytelling, transparency, and audience trust. It raises questions about how trauma narratives should be handled responsibly while respecting the needs of storytellers. For the audience, it underscores the need for critical media literacy. Viewers must navigate a complex landscape where truth, performance, and persuasion intertwine. Understanding the mechanics behind emotional storytelling can foster more nuanced consumption and dialogue. Ultimately, the ethical dilemmas illuminated by Meghan's rehearsed confession are emblematic of a media age wrestling with authenticity. The demand for emotional connection meets the realities of media production. The path forward requires balancing compassion for personal narratives with rigorous commitment to honesty and transparency. In the end, the Meghan Markle Oprah interview and the revelations about its staging serve as a powerful case study. They compel us to ask, how do we honor genuine pain while recognizing the performance? How do media creators maintain integrity while crafting compelling stories? And how do audiences find trust in a world where every moment may be rehearsed? The answers will shape not only the legacy of Meghan Markle's narrative but the future of media ethics itself.